Hey Mario,
Hi.
how are you doing?
I'm fine, thanks.
You okay? What was your first computer?
Oh, I started very, very soon. I mean, I started writing BASIC, I think, when I was like 5 or 6 years old. Uh, I'm born in 1974, so I'm 50 this year, as you probably know, as you probably see at demos. And my first computer was in 79 or 80 at least, because uh, my my father opened the very first computer shop in South Italy in the end of 70s or early 80s.
No kidding. In which town?
It's my hometown. It's called Mondragone. It's like 50 kilo. It's on the sea, 50 kilometers north to Napoli. So you can imagine that people from Sicily to Rome came to my father's shop. So
Sicily. hmm
yeah. Well,
So this is the
it was
mafia guys, right?
well, yeah. We had some problem with it at time, but
Oh, really?
let's not go there. Yes,
Okay.
okay. And my first computer was a ZX80 Spectrum. I don't know if you know it. It's a very tiny thing. It has 2 kilos of RAM, and
With
then I
rubber keys.
yeah, with rubber keys, with blue keys, and the fact it was supposed to be only programmed in BASIC, and indeed the for every letter and a function key with a basic keyboard.
Yeah, load and
So
run. R was run.
yes, go to and whatever. Yes.
I also got on ZX Spectrum, but it was better than yours. It was as Amstrad bought ZX Spectrum, so I got the 128K with included dataset or data
Okay.
cassette or whatever how it was called. You know,
Well,
it
no,
looked really. It looked almost like my keyboard right now. It was serious actually, so it had nice keys, and I really liked that.
okay. Yes. Well, it's already the next generation. I mean,
Mhm.
my thing didn't have any memory at all, so the only thing you could do is turn it on, write some basic code, run it,
Mhm.
and when you turn it off, you basically lost everything, and you had to restart from scratch.
Exactly,
So,
but you could
yes.
save to a dataset, right?
Not that one. No, I don't think so.
Because what I
All
know,
right.
what people usually did, they refactored their cassette players to be computer players. You know what I mean? I don't know how to call it. It is like not how to call it to be cassette drive for a
Yes.
computer. So instead of floppy drive, you know, you have
Yeah, of course. Yes.
yeah yeah.
I believe that one. I mean, it's very old. It doesn't support this
Okay,
thing.
okay.
Yes.
And what you did with it? So you what?
Uh, I just started learning basic. You know, at time you can buy some
Magazines.
newspaper magazine, yes, and copy the code and play with it, and yeah, you spend 1 or 2 hours copying the code from the newspaper, and then of course you did some stupid mistake somewhere, and that you have to discover where. And
I think I never was successful. Actually, I remember I always tried, but it never worked. And the problem was also there were different variants of computers. This was not always in all the listings for the ZX Spectrum. And I tried to understand something, so this was like never-ending story. But I still enjoyed that
yeah,
process, but it never worked actually.
yeah, but you know, it was mostly a learning process, and
Yeah.
it was fun at time. Yes,
Mhm. So,
yes.
and what is your first software you wrote or program? You know, on the ZX Spectrum.
I really don't
Hello
remember. Well,
World. No, Hello World was not there. For loop
yeah,
and string maybe.
I I I don't remember really. I remember I had Commodore 64 a few years after,
hmm
and there was a very first program to um, uh, create a sound synthesizer. I
hmm
mean, something that you can input a string and then it synthesizes the sound of the string you wrote. And I wrote this program, and the first thing I made it say it's well, Irma is my sister, so I made it say Irma is stupid, and my very little sister broke in tears because the computer told her that she was stupid.
She still remembers that?
Yeah, I believe so. Yes, she was very little. She's 4 years younger than me, but I believe she remembered it. Yes.
Oh, okay. So you were a good brother. So
yeah, of course, yes.
This was actually okay. I remember this software, and I was really fascinated by it, but I didn't got it. So this speech synthesizer, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we have one in Java, FreeTTS, if you know.
Yeah.
And Sphinx is the other way around. So it recognizes speech, and FreeTTS is, what we wanted to have always with the Commodores and ZX Spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
Was the shop from your dad successful?
It was, yes. As you said, the situation in the 80s in Saudi Italy was not completely safe.
Yeah.
So you're right. We had some problem with mafia. Actually, my zone is called Camorron, or in the Napoli zone. And
but I mean, I didn't want it to go this route, rather than whether he sold, lots of computers.
Yeah, I believe at some point he had to give up because of this. Yes.
Okay. This is sad, actually. It was supposed to be, a joke, but I didn't know that it was serious.
It was not. It was
okay.
not. Yes, he had to give up because of this. Yeah, I don't know if you want to know the story, but it's not something that you probably don't want to go there. Yes.
Okay, but okay. So, but you got a C64?
Yes, sure.
Yeah. And what's the first software you wrote on C64?
Yeah, that it was. I remember that sound speech synthesizer, and yeah, mostly I played with it. I mean, I wrote a chess player actually.
Really?
Yes, I tried to.
I was fascinated by chess games, but I had no idea how to write it.
Yeah, so, me neither.
Okay.
I mean, it didn't really work. I mean, it only knew a few opening moves, and that's all. But
I remember this was a whole scene back then about chess games, and it I just read about that. It's like, why everyone is so smart. I don't even know how to start, and they discuss. This was unbelievable back then. I remember. But there were already chess games for the computers. I remember.
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah, I had one. I also lost against my Spectrum, I have to admit.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But it was mostly for fun and for learning.
Yeah, sure. This is most of the time. But you did something serious on C64, or was the next machine?
No, I didn't. But then in the mid 80s, I don't know if you remember, we had this Olivetti machine in Italy. Okay, so my father mostly was a reseller of those machine and made some customization on that machine that were very expensive at time. So I worked on that. I did something on those Olivetti machine. There was a very first word processor on those machine, and I started making some money typewriting the university thesis from my older friends, and
that's cool. It's also good, because typing fast, this is actually what you need to be productive.
Yes. So yeah, that's another Italian, let's say, sad story. I mean, Olivetti was really a market leader at time.
I think I had the Olivetti, because I bought from insurance agent a small laptop, a tiny one, for no money, basically. And it was incredibly small, and I think it was Olivetti, but it was black and white, so you couldn't just, for me it was perfect, but it was very light, It was 1997, maybe something like this. So around that, and so and I'm pretty sure it was Olivetti because I remember the name. It was this unusual computer in Germany, so it was not like
I believe so. Yes,
but they were highly rated on the stock market, I believe, and then everything broke down. So this is what I remember.
Yeah, I mean, in the mid '90s, it was already the the sending phase, the sending phase of the company. It was in the '80s that Olivetti went really well. We had this first machine that was called M20, and probably the one that you mentioned, it was called M10, something like this.
But this was on laptop, a small one.
A laptop, yes. The M10.
Black one, I remember, very light and very small. For that time, it was incredibly small. So I got the next one with Windows. It was like twice as big and twice as heavy. But this one was very light. It was incredible back then. I still,
But it's another, Italian industrial story that it didn't go as expected. It could have been a market leader, but then they lost traction. Yes.
I think it was. I now have the M10, and I think it could be this one because it was as small. I thought the screen will have less bezel, but back then everything looked like that, right? So in my imagination, it looked like iPad, right? But it was nothing like that. Everything had it looked like picture frame with lots of frame around the bezel.
Yeah, it was just that, but yes.
So you got an Olivetti and you made some money by
well, yes, my father was a reseller again of those machines, and at time the margin, the profit was much higher than now. I mean, normally now if you resell hardware, you do a 3% or a 5% margin at least. I remember at time it was like 30 or 40%. So it was totally pioneer. But of course, you sold a very, very small numbers of them. So it was really a pioneeristic area at time. Yes, especially again in South Italy. Yes.
But it's actually a cool story that your father was as early with the computers.
Yeah. My father is an electronic engineer. He worked on before doing this, he worked on a local company there in South Italy. They did motherboard for Philips television.
Wow. Okay.
And then if he at time he found this new era of computers on computer, and he bet everything on this. He resigned from the work and started this
rebel.
This adventure, literally. Yes. So it was a really exciting time. Yes, really exciting time. And my town is relatively small, but many of my friends went to my father's shop to play with computer, and so there are lots of I have lots of friends of my age of my home place that now are into software development because of this.
So you were the king in town then, right?
Yeah, at time, my father had all the computer with the games, and yes, sort of, yes.
That is a pretty cool story, actually. So I can remember. But for me, the computers back then, I told it on the podcast many times, were magical somehow. It was a complete different world. Right now, it is just, for me, almost like a television. It's a perfect graphics, perfect sound. It's more like multimedia device, and okay, we program with it. But you can also use computers and just, for fun. And back then, you had to do something with it, right? So you had because otherwise you couldn't even load the program. So and if you load something, it was incredible. As I said, even chess, it was for me unimaginable how to write such a program. And what made me crazy is peek and pokes. Of course, I never know. I say how they know the numbers. This was, and I couldn't get the idea that they were actually documented in a book. And I thought, they were genius and they did this somehow. So this was actually crazy.
Yeah, but again, it's totally different era of computing. I don't remember much of that part. Yes.
But how you started programming or did something different on the machines? No.
Well, then of course I got fascinated of the whole thing. I study computer science
Wow.
at university
Where was it? Which
in
town?
Napoli, in South
Napoli.
Italy.
Okay.
So, which is a quite good. It was a quite good university in the 90s. So I did computer science there. I mean, I was, you know, many kids or boys, even when they are 17 or 18, they graduate and they have to start from an university course. They are really undecided. It's hard to choose one.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I knew what I wanted to do when I was 6.
Computers?
Because yes, that's the thing. Yes, and I feel lucky because of this.
For me, the same. But what I wanted to do is not necessarily computers. I wanted to do Kubernetes. I wanted to program robots, and
Okay.
a long time. This was I just wanted to use computers to make something move, and then I found out that it is actually boring. It is better, to let the computers, the robots go, and just to software, because then sky is the limit. You can do whatever.
Yeah.
But and then that changed. This was the only thing which I corrected. But I also knew, as you, I was completely fascinated. It was like a really cool thing to use the computer the entire time for something. I didn't know what, but I wanted just to use it. This was my thing. So I would like to use the thing. I have no idea what to do with it. So this was my situation back then.
Yeah, but there are this thing is pretty cyclical when new technologies are introduced. I see the same thing with generative AI now. I mean, it's a super powerful tool, but nobody really knows what to do about it. So we try random thing, and it's just a maturity issue also that. So
if we get serious about programming, there are a couple of ideas right now. For instance, what fascinates me with AI and LLMs is the integration with state machines and workflows and stuff like that, right? And we have a new guest. What's the name of the dog?
Bart.
Okay.
Yes, like Bart Simpson,
Yeah, okay. So this is an audio only podcast, but what I can tell our listeners, that there's a really nice dog with the name of Bart. Bart.
Okay.
Cool. So how you started programming? What was your first, or after study, or in study you learned? What's the next language after BASIC, maybe?
I did some Pascal at the high school, and then at university I did mostly C and C++. And it was the really early years of Java. Java started in 95. I started university in 92 and graduated in 98. So it was really the dawn of Java, the beginning of Java. And I started doing some Java at the end of during my latest year at university.
Why you started with Java? So why you got Java? This is an interesting story, no?
Well, one of my professor introduced us to it, and I was quite excited about the fact that it looked, and it was actually much simpler and effective than C. You don't have all the craziness of pointers and the need of take care of memories. It was a lot more less error prone. That was the thing. Okay, so you did a lot of stupid mistakes in C, and it's super easy to shoot yourself in a foot. And Java prevented to do this thing. And moreover, I have a dear friend in Germany, in Stuttgart, because my father and his father did the university together in Napoli at time, and then his father moved to Germany in the 70s. His son and me, we are of the same age, so we are really dear friends. And during my last year at university, he told me that there was during the summer break that he told me that there was the possibility to have a stage into a Java shop there in Stuttgart. So I spent that summer, the summer of '98, there, and was my really paid job in Java. And I
Cool.
started.
What do you build?
It was a marketplace.
Okay, that's
It
everything.
was yes. It was a first form of B2B software for
with Applet, of course, right? Applet.
Yeah, with Applet, of course. Yes,
Yeah.
sure.
What was the name of the company, if you can reveal? You remember?
The name was Ironware. Was a quite small company.
Mm-hmm.
Ironware, yes. It was relatively small and okay. What happened is that I did this summer there, and then I came back to Italy because I had to discuss my thesis, and I had to
thesis.
Yeah.
What was the topic of your thesis?
It was a very, very early, let's say, application of artificial intelligence. We had these appliances at the university to check the quality of a motherboard. So there was a cam going to the motherboard. So the first party was to create it's a kind of travel salesman problem. So you have to create the
layout, right? The layout of
the layout. You have to create the less expensive path to go through all the soldiers and
even backtracing. Maybe try this.
Yes. And then there was also the visual acquisition part. So what this thing does, there was a cam that went through all the soldiers and take pictures of the soldiers to say, okay, this is good or this is not. So, and then there was a sort of very experimental, let's say, pattern recognition neural network that tried to figure out to classify the quality of the soldiers on the motherboard.
Interesting story.
Yeah.
Which language you choose?
It was in Java.
At that time, I still have the book. I show you this next time. Is the neural networks in Java? I think it was an orange book, and what was described in the book was OCR, character recognition with neural networks. Yeah,
pretty similar application. Yes, the principle was really, really the same. Yes, it was just a classifier to give a score to a soldier point, and then you can decide if the motherboard was good or not. Okay.
Why I ask you about the name of the company? Because at that time, I also was involved in an e-commerce, of course, and but there is a huge convention or convention more. It was called Systems in Munich, and all the shop providers were there, and everything was Java, and everything was applets. And I remember a company called Cappuccino, maybe, and they have multi-story building on this convention center, and the highway was closed or not closed. This was traffic jam before the conference, so this was incredible. So
I remember that conference in the very early 2000. The fact is that okay, I had to come back to South Italy for this thesis, and then okay, I have to do West, under my point of view, a year for the military service, and after I've done with this, I've been contacted back by that company, and in the meanwhile they moved the biggest part of the software development in South Italy, close to Venice. So I've been hired there, and I moved there, and we participated to this
systems
exhibition in
exhibition.
in
Exactly, this was more like exhibition, less a conference.
Yes.
It was huge, right?
Yeah, it was more. Yeah, it was huge. It was huge, and it was 2001. So it was.
This was at the beginning of the end.
Yeah, the beginning of the end, and then that year, then there was the dot-com bubble that exploded, if you remember.
Yeah.
And my company was part of the explosion.
Okay.
So.
But you stick with Java. What is the next project?
Then I moved from Venice to Milano, where I'm still. I am. I did. I did the first thing that I did here in Milano. I worked for another German company, Software AG. You know that?
Software AG, sure.
Yes.
With Daniel Adelhardt back then, I think it was from Sun Microsystems. He was a Glassfish guy.
At the time, we had
lots of XML.
Lots of the Software AG historically did a hierarchical database. Okay, so that was not so popular compared with the relational one. But then we entered in the XML era, which is of course hierarchical, and the idea is, okay, let's apply our competencies in hierarchical database to write a database in that can manipulate and store XML in a native way. And so this is how Tamino, it was called at that time. I don't know if you remember it, but it was the XML database of Software AG.
You worked on it?
I worked on it, yes. I worked on it.
Because I was a Sun Microsystems trainer at the time, and people from Software AG joined trainings. And I remember one guy, a young guy, was really like, so an entrepreneur, I would say, so spirit. And he showed me this, and this was actually better than expected. He was. It was leaner, and it was pragmatic, and everything else was back then just a dream. But this was something you could touch and work with. And XML databases, I think there were lots of them.
Yeah, because it was the first form of NoSQL database.
Exactly.
The very yes, and I worked.
Was it in Java? Was Tamino written in Java?
The biggest part was written in Java.
Super cool. They knew that you did it.
And the also nice thing is that we tried to apply some emerging pattern of programming. For instance, at time it was the very early days of aspect-oriented programming.
Yeah.
So, for instance, all the logging part, the caching was only made with Aspect. So we had Aspect, and I worked on that part especially. So I specialized in aspect-oriented programming.
Aspect J you used?
Yeah, we used Aspect J.
Crosscuts.
Yes, right. So we had Aspect to intercept some call and to add some logging and add some caching and stuff like this.
So I always curse about the aspects, because in all conferences, the aspects were very popular topics. But in business, there are not a lot of use cases. You said already, caching, logging are the most common one. But if you start doing business, this is harder, because then, back then there was the idea about modularity, and they tried, to keep business logic in aspects. It's like, then you are lost. I mean, this is really hard to do properly. And caching, logging is obvious. Maybe security, of course,
Yeah,
and then,
sure.
And the next problem is all the application servers did it, for free. And because it was built in, remoting is also an aspect. So, proxies and dynamic proxies, transactions, an aspect. But this is all technical aspects. And in Germany, this is what I observed, they try to do more with it and implement business logic with aspects. And I never saw this work.
Yeah, it was a kind of interesting paradigm, but as you said, it had some interesting sweet spot for very specific tasks, but it didn't compose very well. I mean, the problem was that if you have two or more aspects intercepting the same thing, you are never really sure how they interact among them and with the rest of the code. And at time it was even not really clear the sequence. I mean, you have two interceptors for the same method, and you never know how one can influence the other. So
exactly.
It was,
and the next idea was also that they were supposed to be reusable. But if you have a reusable, the data type has to be generic. So you will work basically on an object. I'm exaggerating. And if you do with it, you have to cast to something more meaningful. And it was very brittle, I would say. But I'm glad also you see this way. But for logging, whatever, sure. But now, if you go to Quarkus and we have a fault tolerance, this is aspect-oriented programming, but we put annotation, no one cares, So no one speaks.
All the annotation goodies that that we have now are aspects. Probably the evolution of that idea. Yes.
Yeah, interceptors. Yeah, pretty cool. Great. So you worked in Germany, Software AG?
No. It was in Milan.
Milan. Okay. Didn't knew that you actually working.
Yeah.
And they bought something else recently, right? So Software AG bought something bigger. I have to look at this because they were in the news. Or okay. So
they have more in consulting now, right?
Okay. Yeah, but they had an interesting product.
They don't have. Do they have products still?
I think they bought something interesting, which was I'll have to look it up. But what happened then? You were no more interested in XML?
Well, no. This thing lasted for less than 1 year, and then I was in Milan. It was the early 2000, and at some point you work for Berlusconi at time. So I went. Actually, it was a project. I was a consultant in a project where IBM was the contractor, and we made software to optimize the advertisement allocation in a television program to maximize the revenue. And we need. There was sort of a specialized rule engine when a user can put in some rule, like very simple rule, like the timing of the duration of the advertisement that it have, of course, to follow some law, and then you want to say, okay, if I have the advertisement of a car in this advertising stream, don't put a second car in it, stuff like this, right? And then there was the revenue part, because all the you have a very different prices of the advertisement based on the timing and based on the kind of program where you want to move them. So there was a sort of optimizing software that did this allocation of to maximize the revenue, and also try to maximize the satisfaction of customer, and it also created some packages that customer can buy, because everybody wanted.
For which company you did it for?
It's Publitalia. It's the company of Berlusconi. It's the company of Berlusconi Television that was specialized in selling advertising.
Okay, not bad. That's a big deal, actually.
Yeah, it was quite well. The work was interesting because there was lots of algorithmic part to do this
Java?
kind of optimization. It was in Java as well.
Are you create your own backend, or you used, I don't know, JBoss or Whitefly?
No, well, it was again the contractor was IBM, so we used all the IBM software, WebSphere. Yes.
So you had a lot of time to drink coffee at startup time.
Yeah. But what really drove me crazy was the IBM ID. I don't remember the name.
Visual Age for Java.
Yeah, right. That's one. Yes, that one was really terrible at time. Yes.
I actually liked that because it looked completely different. But what was crazy, you never saw the entire source code. This is what I hated. You click on a method, you only saw the method. And you couldn't scroll because it was more like a database. There was no source. To see the source code, I always exported the source code to open the source code. This was the problem.
Yeah, the idea is that you should navigate the object and the method in some way, but I never liked
But it looked nice, no?
Yeah, well, it was nice. It was also pretty unstable. I mean, I remember I had a crash once or twice a day.
Yeah, once a day. Yeah, you're right. But once a day, everything crashed back then, I would say.
Yeah.
Okay, so Visual Edge, and what they also could do well back then, refactorings. You could rename classes and it worked. JBuilder couldn't do that. JBuilder couldn't do this.
That worked very well. Yes, it was quite interesting.
Because this was database. This is why they could do this. They didn't have to parse the files. They just renamed something in memory. The Envy was the repository, as you remember.
And you can also create your code template because at the time everything was made with HAP and there was it was like I believe HAP 1.1. I mean the code you write was very repetitive. I mean, there was lots of
remote home interface.
There was lots of
business interface.
So it was pretty good to do scaffolding of that code. Yes,
I never used even in project where Visual Edge for Java was used. We prefer to use Xdoclet, to generate the entire thing. Xdoclet, Xdoclet.
Ah, yes, sure.
This was the beginning of annotations, I would say.
Yeah.
And this worked well with Ant even. But I never trusted IDEs, to generate code. It was always a mess because what happens in refactoring? Okay, cool. So this was an interesting project.
It was, yes.
Yeah, really. I mean, this is like, yeah. And what happened then?
That one lasted for almost 3 years. And then I moved to Switzerland, to the Italian-speaking part of Switzerland for a few years in Lugano. It was a small company. It was really a startup company, but in Switzerland, especially in the Italian part, you mostly work with banks and insurance companies. So yes, it was mostly financial software, and this also lasted a few years. But then I fall in love with Scala. It was the end of 2000.
I found you nice until now, with Scala. I tried Scala, but I couldn't, stand the compiler. It was even slower than Xdoclet.
Yeah,
I didn't know that you do Scala. Okay,
I did. Yeah, and I did.
But still, or no more?
No more.
Oh, very good. Okay, so you're young, you were young, teenager, so this can happen, right?
Anyway, I really wanted to do some Scala code. I mean, I did a couple of Scala Days. At times, it was in the PFL in Lausanne. I still have some very good friend of the early time of that thing. Maybe Jonas Bonner or Victor Klang. We were all
Victor Klang as well.
Yes.
Didn't you
Victor,
that?
Yeah. Victor Klang was one of the creator of Akka together with Jonas Bonner.
Okay. So I had chats with Martin Odersky on various conferences. He was the one of the creators of Scala, and I was really excited about Scala because my theory was, in one point of time, my Java won't scale, and I will have to use Scala. But the problem was, it was always fast enough, So I waited, and there was no reason to use Scala. And then I gave up. I said, okay, then nothing for me. Maybe there is a use case, but all my projects were very happy with playing Java. And this is where I lost interest in Scala.
Yeah. Anyway, I really wanted to have a Scala work at time. I couldn't find it in Italy or in Ticino, in the Italian-speaking parts of Switzerland. I found a Scala job in Berlin.
In Berlin?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
So I moved to Berlin at the beginning of 2011. But the problem was that the week before I was about to move to Berlin and starting this new work, my wife told me, look, I'm waiting for a baby. So, and I said, okay, I will go to Berlin regardless for a few months. Let's see how it goes, and then we will decide what to do. So I started this Scala job in another very small company in Berlin. It was called Number Four, and history repeats. They also did a B2B marketplace.
Okay.
In Scala this time, and the work was pretty interesting, and I must admit that I liked Berlin in that time frame because it was relatively cheap compared to Milan or to Switzerland. It was nice, and I had lots of friends there. So, in essence, I told my wife, "Come over from for a weekend and see how it goes, and see if you like the town, and we will decide what to do next." And the problem is that she came on a weekend at the end of February. We had minus 22, minus 23 degrees that weekend, and she said, "This is absolutely not for me. I don't want to come here."
Siberia.
yes, right. So okay, so I had that to work. I understood she didn't want to move to Germany, even because she's in sales and she doesn't speak German. So
okay.
I speak a very little bit of German, and probably I forgot the most that I knew. Because while living in Berlin and doing software development, you can do everything with English and you are fine. But if you are in sales, you really need to speak the local languages. So she also said, okay, not only for the temperature, but also because if I move here, it will be pretty impossible for me to find a decent job without learning Germany, which is not exactly easy. So yes, I did the winter and part of the summer there. At the end of the summer, I moved back to Italy, or I tried to. I don't remember. It was the summer of 2011. It was still quite the tail of the economic crisis, and it was pretty bad, especially in Italy. So it was quite hard to find a work. But what happened is that during the summer, I participated to a Scala Days. That year the Scala Days were in at Stanford University in California.
Wow.
And I wrote a toy. I had this toy project that was a rule engine written in Scala, and I presented this thing at the Scala Days. And
you wrote it in your leisure, or what?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I wrote this rule engine. It was called Hammurabi. Maybe if you look for it,
Hammurabi. Okay.
Yes, if you look for it, maybe you will still find it somewhere. I mean, people started using it. It was a toy project for me, but people started using it for some reason, and I presented it at the Scala Days. And but then I told you I was looking for a work in Italy because my daughter was about to born, and I want to move back and stay with my family, of course. And what happened is that at the end of the day, and this is a nice story, I believe, about open source and participating to the conference in general, because people don't believe in the value of this thing. But really, my entire career is, and especially the last part, I'm really happy about it. I'm really happy of how it went and it's going. But it's mostly because of my participation with the software development community at large. So doing open source, coordinating the Java user group here in Milano, or participating to conference. I really love the social part and the open source part of this thing. And I mean, the reason why I'm telling this is that I wrote this rule engine, and then Mark Proctor, who was the project lead of Drools, which is the Red Hat rule engine, saw this presentation that I did, and he was looking for somebody to work on the rule engine. And he told me he offered me to work on Drools because of this. So I joined Red Hat, and I was super happy because the work was totally remote, so I could come back to Italy and then start this new work, stay with my family, and work on the rule engine. And I started working on Drools because of this. So I found the best job of my career, the job that I'm still doing after 13 years, because of my open source toy project, and because of this participation to a conference. So this is why what I often try to explain to younger developer, to younger generation. Please do open source, but not because just because it's fun. It's also a time sink sometime, but you have a lot to learn. But not all. It's very important for your career. It's very important for people to know you, to know your work. And when I joined Red Hat, I didn't have a uh, technical interview at all. I mean, it was not necessary. My code was there on GitHub. I presented it. I did it myself. They were happy with my code. There was no reason to have a technical interview to hire me. That's the thing. So
You're right. Recently, I had conversation with a manager, and the manager asked me, why I'm attending conferences. I said, look, I have actually no time for it because I'm fully booked, but I just do it because I always did it. And you learn, you come to new ideas, because if I'm at a conference, I also participate in the as a even if I speak at conference, I try to listen to as many talks as possible, and you get complete different point of view and ideas. And lots of my ideas are, and I have the possibility to validate my ideas. If I'm speaking about my point of view, and then all the participants are lots of smart people in the audience. And if there is no, and after that they come to me and ask, was it okay, or what is your opinion? And they say, okay, mostly okay. Then it's also good for me because I'm freelancer, right? So I have to validate my things somehow. But what happens over time is you speak, I don't know, hundreds of times, and from a few times an incredible opportunity opens. This is not like, and what people try to find is, I speak once at conference, then I become millionaire, and this is not how it works. You have to be consistent as always. If you do it a lot, this should be more like a lifestyle. I'm in order to learn, I do open source, I speak at conferences, and if I do it for a few years, I will get from time to time an interesting inquiries. So this is how I see this. And many developers, they say, I go to conference, I will speak once, nothing happens, it was not worth, never again. This is not how it works. It is not like the plan to become millionaire. This is So I see this absolutely in your case, right? And it's also a bit smart, because if you contributing to a niche project all the time, nothing will happen. So you have to be broader and somehow know what could be successful, not just going to one direction regardless what happens, right? And are you now the main committer of Drools, or still committing, or no more?
I'm the project lead of Drools still. Still working on it now. Of course, in Red Hat, you are encouraged also to participate.
But you commit a lot to Drools.
I do, yes, I do. Yes.
Most of the commits?
Well, these days, most of my commits are on Quarkus, actually. I'm mostly working on the LangChain 4J integration. We are doing all this AI madness, and I'm in it, of course. The funny thing, or not so funny, is something that I noticed it, and I wrote a tweet during the last Evox. During the last Evox, half of the talk was about green computing. Let's try to not consume too much energy to optimize your software on one side, and on the other end, everything was about Gen AI and LLM, and that thing burns a lot of energy, probably most of it with not a valid reason.
Hey, Mario, what we should do is not a talk and say how to save energy. Always call remote LLM, never run it locally, so you can save the energy and someone else waste it.
But
so I have a suggestion, because almost 1 hour. So I would like to invite you back to talk about Drools only.
Mm-hmm.
So what is the idea with the memory? With the with RETI algorithm, even
yes.
the basics, and then let's see what happens. And then of course LangChain. This is always interesting.
Yeah, we can speak a little bit about the internals.
Yeah,
the algorithmic part, which is
and also what's interesting is the Drools and LLMs, because I think you can combine both. What I see this would interest me, and then maybe have the bridge to LangChain for J.
Correct, because when this Gen AI thing started, I've been told, look, now we have this stuff, probably rule engine is not useful anymore. I really disagree on this. I believe that they are two very complementary technology.
Exactly.
And I'm trying to create example on how to complement them.
This is what you should talk about. Erstmal no. Erstmal about erstmal is German. So first, erstmal, it's mixing already. First about Drools, and then about AI and integration with LangChain.
Sure.
So where people can find you on the internet?
Yeah, I'm vocal on Twitter sometime. Be advised, I'm strongly opinionated, so sometimes you may not agree. I'm except for Twitter, I'm not a very social. I really don't like all the social networks. Modern social networks, let's say. So the other place where you can find me is, of course, GitHub, which is a social network for software development, I guess. And again, I like to participating to the social part of our work, because one of the misunderstanding of people not doing our work is that we always stayed in front of a computer. We don't have social interaction. But I believe that the social part of our work is one of the most important one, and that's why I try to participate to conference, to share ideas. You said, I mean, you find new idea, you share your works, and you learn from other. So I really believe that the social part of our work is important, and in the same way, again, I coordinated the Java user group here in Milano. We had, of course, some problem during the COVID.
Maybe we are a binary social creatures, because I enjoy to code alone, but I also enjoy to speak with people, but then a lot, not so half talk, but then let's talk and have fun. And then leave me alone, and I would like to code, right? So nothing in between, right? So cool.
I agree.
Yeah. So thank you. It was you are actually nicer than I thought, because on my perception was you were more extreme, with your opinions, and you are actually easy to go. So I saw lots of your talks, and you were very. My impression was opinionated, strongly opinionated. Which but I was curious what happens if I say no, I don't like Scala, but nothing happened, so it was a good sign, right? And
well, I don't like Scala anymore as well. My epiphany that made me understand that Scala probably was not the way to go. I mean, it's okay if you are alone working on it, but if you have a team doing Scala, that doesn't work really well. And I remember I wrote this single line of Scala code that was to do the Cartesian product of a tuple. And it was really literally a one-liner that I also tweeted it. And at the time, the tweet only allowed you to do 140 characters. So it was very compact. The problem is that 6 months after, I had no clue what that could be. So, and that what made me understand, okay, probably this is not the way I want to write.
What I didn't like about Scala is what I wanted to understand how it is implemented, and I clicked once, on the Scala classes. I couldn't understand anything. It's like, this looks crazy. And then I asked the Scala guys, and they told me, because there's an application developer and library. They make a distinction between application developer who uses Scala and library developer to implement Scala.
That's right,
you know what? I'm not interested at all, because in Java, you click on regardless what. You have the chance to understand, If you click on string, you will completely understand what happens, right? So if the other classes are harder, but they are harder because they're hard, but not obfuscated. So this was...
That's the truth.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, and see you next time.
Okay, thanks a lot. Bye. Thanks for having me.